Hello everyone, I'm Daddy Warbucks, and today I'd like to take a minute to talk to you guys about how to play Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. Some of you may know me from my Twitch channel, where we play Dungeons & Dragons several times a week, and I try to make the games that I run on my channel as friendly to newer players as possible. And I'm going to be making a series of videos in order to help people who are either interested in joining our games, or if you're just interested in learning to play in general. Hopefully these will help you. Today we are going to be talking about how to actually play the game, okay? And there's going to be two main things that we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss actions in combat and actions outside of combat, because those are the two main phases of the game. Honestly, like, you can break all of D&D down to the combat situations and non-combat situations. And no matter what it is, the things that you can do outside of combat and the way that you're going to play and interact with the other players and the DM is going to be a lot different. We're going to focus on combat first. This document I have in front of me is the Systems Reference document. It's available for free from Wizards of the Coast. It will be in the description of the video. But the Systems Reference document is available, and it's it has a lot of different rules in it, and it is more comprehensive than the basic rules that you can download for free. So if you are a new player and you don't have access to a player handbook, you should buy a player's handbook. It helps you, as you're playing the game, be able to reference what you can and cannot do within your class and whatever. But maybe you don't have the money at the moment, or you're still on the fence about spending the money on a handbook. Download the Systems Reference document. It does have a lot of the information that's in the handbook available here. On your turn in combat, you can move a distance up to your speed, and you can take one action. And we'll go more into detail about the actions that you can take on your turn in a little bit, okay? But generally, that's going to be it. Your turn is going to be move and action, or an action and then move. There are a few times you can do a couple extra things, though. First of all is bonus actions. A bonus action is an additional action you would get to take on your turn. However, you do not have a bonus action by default. A class ability or skill has to give it to you. Unless you have something that says you can take a bonus action, you don't have a bonus action to take. Examples of bonus actions. The spell Healing Word. And this is one I remind my players of a lot, because they have it. They don't want to spend their turn healing, but the cast time on Healing Word is one bonus action. Other examples of bonus actions: the Monk has abilities they can use. It'll cost them one bonus action for Flurry of Blows. Other types of activity that you can have on your turn. First one is, these are things that are not important enough to require your action. So the first thing is you can communicate however you are able. And then it goes on with this funny little text through brief utterances and gestures as you take your turn. The reason it includes that is because a round in combat is supposed to be 6 seconds. Depending on how strict your DM is, they may have some leeway with this, but I try to remind my players, your turn is 6 seconds long. You take your action, you're in combat, it's fast paced. So my players, we try to limit it to, as I run in and swing and hit with my axe, I'm going to say, attack the other one, or you know what I mean? Just something you could shout out or yell or grunt. It's not like when it comes to your turn in combat, you can say, okay guys, what do you think I should do, and have a strategy session, because it's supposed to be very fast, right? And something else you can do that does not require an action is you can interact with an object or feature of the environment for free. And you can do this during your move or during your action, it doesn't matter. Examples would be, you could open a door during your move as you stride toward a foe. You could draw your weapon as part of the same action if used to attack. If you want to interact with a second object, you have to use your action. And then there are some items that require an action to be used. The most frequent one is the health potion. If you want to use a health potion, it requires an action. The last thing that you can kind of do for free is another additional type of action called a reaction. And a reaction is where certain spells, abilities, or situations allow you to react to something that's happening. A reaction is an instant response to a trigger of some kind, which can occur on your turn or on someone else's. Most common type of reaction is the opportunity attack. You're next to somebody, they move away from you, you have the option to swing at them for free. Something to keep in mind, you only have one reaction per round. So if you take an opportunity swing at one goblin as it moves away, when a second goblin moves away, you don't have a reaction to swing at him too. There are some spells and abilities that will cost a reaction. The spell Shield is an example. As a reaction, when you are attacked, you can cast the spell. You gain 5 AC until the start of your next turn. If you cast that spell, then obviously you're not making any opportunity swings because you only have one reaction. So, actions in combat, right? Now we talked about on your turn, you get to move, you get to take your action. And then if you have something special that says, you get a bonus or a reaction. So that action you get to take in combat, you can use that in a bunch of different ways. And we're going to go over all of them here. The first and most common way for you to take your action is to attack. You draw your sword, you hit the guy with the sword. You have your quarterstaff, you hit the guy with the quarterstaff. That's an attack action. Okay, it's just walking up and booping the guy with the thing. The second thing you can spend your action on is to cast a spell. Spellcasters, and depending on what your class is, all of that's detailed in your class section, your spellcasting modify, how to cast spells. Another thing you can do on your turn is called a dash action. And when you take the dash action, you gain extra movement for the current turn. The amount that you get is equal to your speed. So if you have 30 speed and you take a dash action, that means in your turn you can move 60 feet. This is good if someone is up ahead, they were scouting ahead, they found some nastiness, so you need to rush up there and help them out. That's when you would take a dash action. The next one we're going to talk about is a disengage. Disengage does not give you any additional movement like dash does. Disengage simply says that your movement for the turn will not provoke opportunity attacks. On your turn, you're surrounded by goblins, you're going to get beat up, so you decide, well, I'm going to run away and go position myself somewhere else so I don't get hurt. That's disengaging. The next thing that you can do is a dodge action. The idea is that you're hunkering down, you're getting ready to roll out of the way, to jump to a side, so that when you are attacked, you don't take any damage. Any attack roll made against you has disadvantage if you can see them. There is help. Help is where you lend aid to another creature in order to complete a task. And I know I've had a lot of players confused about this. I want to use my action to help them with an attack. Helping someone with an attack doesn't give them extra damage. It doesn't give them extra dice. It will, however, have advantage. So it's the way it works, right? So there's a goblin, there's a friend. You're like, well, hey, goblin, over here, attack me. The goblin's distracted looking at you because you're helping. So your ally attacking would have advantage because they're not paying attention to him. They can't dodge out the way. So that's the one way you can use help. The other way that you help someone is if there is an action, something they're trying to do, right? There's a timer and you have to pull this extremely heavy lever or the floor is going to fall out and everyone's going to fall into a bubbling pit of lava and die. So your friend is trying to pull it, you're going to go help them, okay? Your helping them will give them advantage on the roll. Another action you can take on your turn is hide. When you take the hide action, you make a dexterity stealth check in an attempt to hide, following the rules for hiding. The benefits of hiding are usually an AC bonus, and you can't take a hide action if you are in clear line of sight of enemies. Then there is the ready action. And the ready action, this is probably the trickiest one to get the hang of. So when you want to get the jump on a foe or wait for a particular circumstance before you act. In one game I could think of, there was this cloud of fog. They couldn't see into it, but they could hear that there was an enemy in it. So my player said, I'm going to take my crossbow, I'm going to get ready, and then when a creature walks out of the fog, I'm going to shoot it. So that's how it works. You determine what you want to do, and then you say what the trigger is. My reaction, I'm going to shoot the guy when they come out of the fog. When you take the ready action, you're setting these parameters, and you're giving yourself a reaction if those parameters are met. I'm going to cast Firebolt, but I'm going to hold on to it. And if somebody attacks the cleric, I'm going to hit him with the Firebolt. When that occurs, they would use their reaction to do that. You can also, on your turn, perform a search action in combat. This is, I don't know why you would search during combat. It seems like a very poor decision. But when you take the search action, you are looking for something. You're searching an object. Depending on the nature of your search, you'll roll perception or investigation. And then you'll find a thing. It just kind of depends on what it is you're doing. Lastly, using an object. Remember, we already talked about free interactions, but sometimes using an object might require an action, i.e. health potion. Okay, so now that we covered your actions in combat, I want to talk about actions outside of combat. Outside of combat, because there's no enemy you're trying to defeat, there's no set order to things, it tends to be a lot more free-flowing, a lot more flexible. But everything will come down to your ability scores. If you're investigating something, if you're talking to somebody, your GM is always going to ask you to make a check based on one of your attributes, and depending on what the result is, will determine whether you're successful or not. The ability scores are pretty straightforward. It's the same grouping that's in every role-playing game, either tabletop or video game, since the beginning of time. But it's always good to be familiar and kind of get in the habit of what each does. So ability checks. Ability checks are a test against a character or a monster's innate talents. And it could be anything. You're trying to talk with a provisioner and convince them to give you a cheaper price. It's a charisma check. If you're trying to run and leap across a chasm and do so skillfully enough that you don't fall, it might be a strength check. But anytime you're going to be asked to roll a dice, there's going to be a number that is either set by the module or set by the GM, and that number is the difficulty class. You have to get at or above that number in order to be successful. Depending on the degree that you fail by or pass by, sometimes that'll influence how great or how poorly you manage. This scale here kind of gives you an idea of what a typical, DC is. 15 is right in the middle, like that's your standard check. DC 5 is very easy, DC 10 is very easy, but I just wanted to point out that you can have checks that are 25, 30, or higher. Our dice only goes up to 20, so if it's a DC 25 or DC 30, it's guaranteed that in order to be successful, you have to count your modifiers, right? One modifier that everybody has is their proficiency bonus. The concept is that as you are an experienced adventurer, you become more adept at things. Everybody starts with a proficiency bonus of 2, but as you level up, it'll increase over time. And your proficiency bonus will be added to a lot of different skills that you have. Your attacks, your spell casting gets added to just about everything in the game. Another type of check that you might have to make is called a contest. And this is where you and another creature, either a player or an NPC or a monster, you're going to make a roll, and then there's going to be another roll made secretly against it. And then basically whatever roll is higher will determine who's more successful. If you're trying to be stealthy and hide from a group of goblins, if those goblins are looking for you, it might be a contest. Your stealth check versus their investigation. And then, depending on who rolls higher, we'll figure out what happens. If you roll higher, you manage to evade detection. If the goblins roll higher, well, then they are perceptive enough to notice you, and then it goes into combat. Now, I referenced skills earlier, and skills are things that you get to pick during character creation that represent things that your character is proficient in. And all of these things, whenever you choose them, you add your proficiency modifier to them, and then whenever you're asked to make a check, you would be able to roll on that as well. I used the example earlier of jumping across a chasm, and I called it a strength check. Well, if you have athletics and you are skillful in athletics, then you would be able to add your proficiency to that check. Same thing with when I referenced the bartering with the shopkeep over a cheaper price. I called it a charisma check. If you are proficient in persuasion, that would allow you to add your proficiency bonus. So it's important to know what all of those extra things are. There's also something called a passive check. Passive checks are where there is just a straight number that is just constantly in effect. The most common way this is used is with perception, and would be 10 plus your wisdom modifier, and that will give a baseline of, well, without walking around actively looking for something, what is the chance that you're going to just notice it being there? If there is a pit trap laid into the floor, if you have a passive perception of, say, 16, maybe you're just walking along and you go, huh, there's a trap there. Whereas if you have a passive perception of like 11, you're not just going to notice it without actively searching for it. So that's something else to keep in mind. The last kind of thing that's really important is called a group check. And that's where usually when a lot of individuals are trying to accomplish the same thing. And that's when a group check would be used. We'll say, for example, if they're in a room and player A says, I want to investigate, and he rolls a 3 and fails to find anything of note. And then player B says, well, I want to investigate. Instead of having a bunch of people roll on the same check, just trying to play the odds until someone is successful, it might be role played as, okay, so the whole party is searching through this room, looking around, trying to find stuff. And then it would be everybody rolls an investigation check. And then if half the group succeeds, or whatever it is the criteria is for success, then you'll just say, okay, you guys find this. Hopefully this helps you guys understand better all the actions you can take in combat and outside of combat. D&D is a lot of fun, and I don't want anybody to be too intimidated by, I don't know how to play or I don't know the rules to try. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. If you haven't already, leave a like on the video and make sure you go in the comments down below and tell me, what other subjects would you like me to cover when it comes to D&D and tabletop games? Do you want me to talk about using Roll20 and that platform, or is there other things you need to know about 5th edition? I'm Daddy Warbucks. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time.